Hello and welcome to another video of me speaking. Today is going to be a remake of my older tutorial video that I'll probably link in the description. More than likely. Yeah, I'll link it. Anyway, I'm remaking them because they were kind of shitty and not well framed and not specific. Anyway, so today we're gonna go over the basics of how to use this wonderful program called Paint Tool Sai. It's provided by Systemax, which is a Japanese company. It's a Japanese company, and it's very, very cheap for what you get. For one, stabilizer. We'll get into that. For two, look at all the tools. Look at... And you can make more. Magic. And there's effects and stuff. It's really cool. Anyway, basics. Alright, first things first. We're just gonna go over the layout. Basically, I'm going to explain what all these do. And these. And how to navigate, basically. File and edit are pretty common in other programs, so it shouldn't be all that new. So, file, your basic stuff. It doesn't have a print function, oddly enough, but whatever. New, opens a new canvas. You get this guy. You can choose from predetermined sizes, or you can just wing it. I tend to like 4,500 by 6,000 at 500 pixels per inch, or DPI. But that makes a high definition, pretty large canvas. In inches, it's 9 by 12 at 500 DPI. Centimeters, 22.8 by 30.4. It's a decent canvas, and it's like paper size. It works. La 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 la. Okay. Open. You can go to your file viewer and open other stuff you got. This sucker is evil. It tells you whenever something has gone wrong. At this point, didn't expect that to come up, but it means that my canvas is stupid. So we're just gonna make a new canvas that's not stupid. Okay. Open recent. You can open recent files that you've opened. This only appears after you've started using it. Don't worry. Save is obvious. Save as. You can save as any of these files. I will explain this in a minute. File viewer, basically, if you turn that off, hit open, you get your regular one. If you turn that on, you get size file viewer. You can export things. Sai is the file that is specific to this program, which you can edit your layers and textures and stuff. It's like using a PSD in Photoshop. Speaking of which, segue anybody, you can also save as a Photoshop file, so you can switch between Sai and Photoshop. Sai does not like Photoshop, so be sure to restart Sai if you save as a Photoshop file before trying to open it again, or it won't let you save. Bitmap is generally just used to make new brushes. JPEG is a JPEG. PNG can be transparent. It's what I use for my transparent line work. And Targa is basically a lossless, lossless meaning it doesn't lose any quality, it's not compressed file format. PNG is also lossless. So these two are good for high def stuff. It won't get pixely. Edit, undo, redo, copy, cut, copy, paste, copy by selection, simple stuff. Canvas, you can change the resolution of your canvas here, which if you hit this, your proportions remain the same. So if you up this one to 5,000, it will up this other one, and so many sixes. And if you hit constrain pixel size, it just lets you up the resolution, not the entire canvas. Changing size, you can add inches or pixels or percentages to the top and sides if you want to extend your canvas further. Say you're drawing something and you don't have enough room for a leg over here. You'd extend the right to whatever so that the leg fits. Crop by selection only works if you have something selected. So say I have Senior Smile. If I select this and hit crop by selection, it just goes to the selection and it crops down the canvas. Simple. Flip horizontally. I should bring Mr. Senior Smile back. Flip horizontally, it'll flip it. Flip vertically, it'll flip it upside down. Rotate 90 degrees. It does what it says it does. Stuff like that. And now we're back. Layer. This will produce a new layer. That and this button do the same thing. This new line work layer does the same thing as this button. New layer set does the same thing as this button. You see in a ta-da, patterns. Copy lets you copy your layers, and now you got 2 copies of it. Delete deletes the layer. It won't let me delete this layer because it's the only layer. But delete. Ta-da. And erase will just erase it instead of deleting the layer, which also erase, delete. Ta-da! Transfer down takes the it takes whatever you have on this layer and it will transfer it down to be on this layer so that all of your stuff is on one layer instead of 2. While merge down, which is this button, will turn the 2 layers into 1 layer. It does the same thing, but it gets rid of one of your layers. Merge visible layers. Say you have 3 layers. This one now has a tongue on it. And you make the tongue invisible. Then you hit merge visible layers. Shit, now your face is merged, but the tongue is not because the tongue was invisible. Flatten the image, merges everything. It also turns the background white, which is not good if you're trying to do transparent stuff. Fill will fill the entire canvas with whatever color you have selected. In this case, it was black. Rasterized line work layer only counts if you're using this kind. The line layers in this are vectors. If you don't know what a vector is, it's basically now I can edit this and make it bigger or smaller without it losing quality. That's what a vector is. Look at that sexy pixel line. So pretty. Look at that. So clean. Behold, vectors. Rasterizing the line work layer will turn the line work layer into a basic layer. So if I make this big, like I did before, It turns all shitty. Look at that. Nasty. No. Yuck. So if you're going to rasterize your line work layer, be sure you have it at the size you want it. Because if you try to resize it, it's going to lose quality. Rasterizing the pressure information, you can basically with this tool, you can decrease the pressure. Aha! Or increase the pressure. So basically, if you reset the pressure information on all of your points, it takes that pressure away. Pretty simple. Luminance to transparency is a bit different. Say I want to use like a picture, and it has a white background on it, and I want to get rid of the white background and just have the main picture. If I hit luminance to transparency, it's going to do two things. One, make it grayscale. Two, this is transparent now. So I can color underneath it. Okay. Transform. You can transform it. If you don't hold down shift and like this, you can skew your image easily. So to keep from doing that, hold down shift and it will scale without skewing the shape. Now if you hold down control, you can manipulate the individual hook points, which is also part of freedeform. It does the same thing if you select freedeform. I just tend to use keyboard shortcuts. Rotate. You can rotate it. You can technically also rotate it while it's in transform, but you cannot rotate it if it's in freedeform. I think you can, or scale. Okay, you can't do scale. Now, special, if you pick this perspective slider and go all the way up and do freedeform, it does perspective for you. Ah, magic. So imagine this little square that you are playing with is a 3D object, and whatever you are skewing is on it. Behold, perspective. And then flipping and vertical and same thing, but just to what you have selected. Okay. This also does the same thing, but just to your layer. Just to this. Renaming the layer, you can name it whatever you want. You'll get the same pop-up box if you double-click on a layer. Selection. You can, if you have something selected, you can clear it, or you can invert it. See? You can tell it not to show. You can add to it by an increment. If you're using a line work layer, you can select your points or select your strokes. And then if you are done with selecting strokes or points, you can clear that using this. If you don't, it'll stay selected. And then select all is everything. Filter, it only has 2 filters, but they are important. I need something colorful. Color. Okay. Hue and saturation filter. Play with this slider. You can change the color of what you are doing. It won't change the saturation switch, which is basically the value. It won't change the value. No. Luminance is the value. It won't change how saturated your color is unless you play with this. There you go, gray, all the way up to eye-shockingly whatever your color is, which is horrifying. And then, let's put this back down. This will make it lighter or darker, all the way from black to white, through that entire spectrum. And you can play with all three. Look at that horrifying color. And now, brightness and contrast. This, as it seems, if it would let me do the thing, make it brighter or darker, like the other one. This will up your contrast. Say you have two colors that are varying darknesses. It will make the difference between the bright color and the dark color greater the more you go to the right, and less the more you go to the left. Now, color deepness refers to saturation. So they do similar things, but I prefer to use brightness and contrast because the difference is a lot more visible. View. This is important. This is one that I've gotten questions about. How do you make the second canvas over here? Well, with the view, if you hit new, you get a second one. So if you minimize one of them, now we have two. You can set smaller up, and you can manipulate the size and zoomed in evenness of them separately, and it doesn't affect the other one. The only thing that affects it is if you change the canvas, like if you draw, it'll appear like if I draw on this one, it shows up on the other one. Okay. Closes the other one. Close all would close my canvas if I told it to. Zoom in. This does the same thing. Zoom out. Flip horizontally. It is the same thing as this button, which is good for checking to see if your picture looks right, because you can see things better from a different angle. Keep that in mind. It is a good thing to get in the habit of using. Rotate. This thing rotates. You can also do predetermined angles. And this square button resets everything. Like, say I'm super duper zoomed in and I hit the square button. Now I'm back to how it fits. Non-scaled brings us to 100% zoom. Because this is a large canvas, this is 100% zoom. I tend to stay around 10-ish %. Reset translation. Basically, if you do this and that and hit reset translation, it fixes that back to 0. Reset rotation will fix just this. It does the same thing as that. These are the views you have open. I only have one. It's right there. If I had two, there'd be two on this list. Okay. Now for window. These are things that you can open on your screen. You can have a color wheel, which I tend to keep closed. You can have RGB slider. I also tend to keep that closed. HSV slider, hue, saturation, value. I always keep open. It's easiest to use for me. Color mixer. Very, very useful if you have two colors and you don't know what mixing them equally would look like. That's this. So say I want to know what this color purple plus, I don't know, like fucking bright green would look like. In the very, very middle, it apparently looks like this. Ta-da! Swatches. Good for if you have a certain color palette you have to stick to. Say, for instance, your character has a certain color combination. Like, for instance, these are my shading colors. I have everything from a light gray to an almost black. I tend to sketch in this color. This is also another shading color. I keep these there and they will stay no matter if my canvas is open, closed, or moved to a different canvas. I keep it shut unless I need it. Scratch pad. You can also keep colors on this. I do that. And this scratch pad has a different undo button than the canvas undo button. Canvas undo button only affects the canvas. If I add something to the scratch pad, I can undo it here without messing with my canvas. This also deletes the scratch pad in contents. It's interesting. It's good for figuring out colors that work well together. Navigator is this little thing. Stop it. This little guy. You can manually zoom in with the navigator using the sliders or the buttons. You can also rotate using the navigator or by using the buttons. Then this red square that you see here moving around tells you where on the canvas you are. So say you're zoomed in, this red square is this. You can move the square around and know where on the canvas you are using the navigator. Quick bar is this guy. Undo, redo, selection, clear, selection, invert, show selection, don't slow selection, zoom, rotate, flip, and then your stabilizer guy. Stabilizer is bay. Selector. This chooses what canvases you want to open. Say I have my watermark. Behold, my watermark. Say I want to switch between the two. This little tab thing down here is your view selector. Status bar is this guy. It tells you if you are overloading the program and also what buttons you're using. See, when I use the pen, it lights up the pen. Ta-da! Cursor showing brush size. Basically, the circle you see is how big the brush is. If I make the brush smaller, it's smaller. If I make the brush larger, it's a larger circle. It just changes with how big the brush is. So you always know how big the brush is in comparison to the canvas. Dot cursor instead of a triangle. Instead of a triangle, it's a dot. See? Triangle. Dot. I prefer triangle so I can see it. Hide command panels is only good if you are doing full screen, because now you can't do shit unless you know your keyboard shortcuts. Full screen is full screen. It'll fill your screen. And then, if you hide command panels, it's super, super big. Okay. Layer panel to right. I keep it to the left, but you can also flip it. Color and tool to the right. You can flip that too. I prefer them on the other side. I don't know why. Probably because I'm right-handed. And reset all windows position. It comes in a basic layout. You can manipulate it like I just did to fit your needs. As for others, there's a help section. Keyboard shortcuts, we'll get into that later. Options. Alright. If you are using a tablet and you can't figure out why you don't have pen pressure, go to digitizer support and put in 0. Then hit pen. Then hit OK. You should have pen pressure now. You're welcome. Tools is dependent on what tablet you have. Workspace usage is just how much your canvas can be, how big it can be, and how much memory the program can use. By the way, Psy can only save up to 2 gigabytes of memory, so be careful when you're using bigger canvases, because it will freak out and tell you that you can't save, so it will not be happy. You can specify where your Psy files are being saved here. I tend to just let it go to the desktop, so I don't really tell it where to go. Free Willy. System ID and version info is just information for you guys, if you want to know what kind of program you have. Now I'm gonna delete every layer that it will let me do, so I can go on to the next portion of this.